Hello, and today we're going to be looking at Pythagoras' theorem. And Pythagoras came up with a formula which is c squared equals a squared plus b squared. And we use Pythagoras' formula when we know two lengths in a right angle triangle and we're trying to work out the third length. So let's begin. So step one, and this is now any question with triangles, etc., for young mathematicians, what we've always got to do is to label the triangle. And in Pythagoras' case, we label it as C, A and B. Now C is the side opposite the right angle. So if we are to look at this triangle here, the right angle is this one here. The triangle's not drawn to scale, it's just but I've marked the 90° with the usual square. Okay, so the side opposite the 90° is the hypotenuse, which in this case we call C. Now the other two sides are just A and B, so this one here could be A and that one there B, or this one here could be A and B. The only one that can't change is C, which is the hypotenuse. Next, we write down Pythagoras' formula, c squared equals a squared plus b squared, and then we substitute a, b and c into the formula, and then we solve by change side, change sign. If you're not sure how to change side, change sign solving equations, then please look at the description at the bottom of the video, and or you can look for one of our videos online for solving equations. Okay, so let's move on to an example now, and what we've got here is our right angle triangle. So we know it's going to be Pythagoras because we know two lengths in the right angle triangle and we're trying to work out the third. So the first hypotenuse is the side opposite the right angle, which is the side x. Next, I'm going to label that one there A and this one here B. So first of all, what we're going to do is to label, which we've done, and step two is write down the Pythagoras' formula. So it's c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Okay, so x is c, as we can see from the diagram, and then we've got a. Now if we go to our triangle, a is 5 and that is squared, plus b squared, and b is 7 squared. Okay, so it should be, your mathematics should be very logical, all equal signs underneath each other, etc. So the x squared, now we can't actually simplify that any further, so at the moment, so we just keep that as x squared. 5 squared is 5 times 5, which is 25. And again, if you're not sure about squareds, etc., then either click on the link in the description and come and visit us and ask us questions, or you can find the square, I think it's square, triangular, Fibonacci and prime number video that we've published. Okay, so 5 squared is 25, and then we've got to do 7 squared, and 7 squared is 49. Okay, so now we've got a nice simplification here to do. So 25 plus 49, and that is 74. Now you'll notice here that it's x squared equals 74. So what we've got to do is we've got to get the x, which is the unknown, by itself. So we circle the 2 or the squared and we bring it over to the other side. Change side, change sign. So therefore, if it's a squared on the left hand side, when we bring it over to the other side, it becomes the opposite of squared, which is square root. Okay, so now some of you may be there thinking, well, there'll be two answers for this because it's a square root. However, we know from the diagram that it's the positive answer because you can't have a negative length in a triangle. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, because it's not a square number, we're going to take the square root of 74 and take it to 2 decimal places. Now the square root of 74 is 8.60232527. So to 2 decimal places, your answer would be 8.60. And that's 2dp. Okay, so hopefully you managed to get that one. And now let's move on to question 2. Okay, so question 2 looks something like this, and we're going to label our right angle as being here this time. So first of all, step 1, we label our triangle. So the side opposite the right angle is C, and then we'll call this one here A and this one here B, but A and B can be the other way around. So first of all, we label our triangle. C squared equals A squared plus B squared. Okay, so now this one here is slightly different to the other one. In the first one we didn't know what C was, and that was our X. This one here is slightly more tricky. So we know that C is 10 squared, and that equals 6 squared plus x squared. Okay, so now what I would do is I'm just going to bring it down here a little bit because I'm going to try and keep my equal signs kind of underneath each other. Okay, so 10 squared, and 10 squared is 100, and 6 squared, so just put that there, is 6 times 6 is 36. And you'll notice here that the unknown is on the right hand side of the equal sign. It's nothing to worry about, it's just the way it's happened this time, you know. Okay, so basically now what we've got to do is we've got to look at our equation. So we've got 100 equals 36 plus x squared. Now the 100 is a known, the 36 is a known, and the x squared is an unknown. So what we've got to do is we've got to move the 36, and it's positive 36 because it's the sign in front of it. Okay, so when we move positive 36 across to the other side, it becomes negative 36, and that equals x squared. Okay, so a nice simple question here now. And 100 take away 36 is 64, and that equals x squared. Now again, what we've got here is x squared equals, which are always trying to get x by itself, so we bring over the squared to the other side, and then it becomes the square root of 64, which equals x. Okay, and the square root of 64, a lot of you will probably know this, is 8, so no decimal places here required. And that is the length of x. Okay, so sorry for the unneat writing, but writing on this little pad is a little bit tricky. Okay, so now it's your turn to have a go at a couple. So your turn. So question 1, and I'll just mark in the I'll just quickly mark in the right angles and where the right angle is. Okay, so right angle for this one is there. Right angle for this one is there, and the right angle for this one we're going to say is here. So if you can just pause the video and copy out the questions and then have a go at answering them. So step 1 is label, step 2 general formula, and step 3 is substitute and solve. Okay, so I'll just make it a little bit more clear which ones you've got to solve in questions 2 and 3. So your x is that side, and here your x is that side. Okay, so just pause your video and copy out and have a go, and then I'll be there to work through them with you. Okay, so question 1, and we label the triangle CA and B. Okay, so let's just go back to that one and label. So the side opposite the right angle is always C, and we're going to call that one there A and that one there B. So A is 6 and B is 7. So therefore now we write down our formula, c squared equals a squared plus b squared. So x squared equals 6 squared plus 7 squared, and then we solve by change side, change sign. So we simplify 6 squared to 36 and 7 squared to 49, and that equals x squared, and then we get to this step here. X squared equals 85. Now you're trying to get x equals, so we've got to bring the squared across to the other side, and it becomes square root. And the square root of 85 is 9.22 centimeters. Okay, so let's now have a look at the next one. So question 2. And let's label our triangle first. So question 2, and what we've got here is the side opposite the right angle is the hypotenuse, which we label as C, and we're going to call that A, and then the x is B. Okay, so what we've got here is we've labelled the triangle. C is 13, A is 11, and x is the B. So again, this is like the second example, and the second example is where you've got known on the left hand side, as you know what the hypotenuse is, which is C. So again, it's just very straightforward, but with one extra step added in. So 13 squared equals 11 squared plus x squared. Then we do 13 squared, which is 169, 11 squared, which is 121, and then plus x squared. So what we've got here is we've got a known, which is the 169, a known, which is 121, and an unknown, which is the x squared. So what we've got to do is to get knowns on one side and unknowns on the other. So a plus 121, when we move over, becomes a negative 121, which we can see in step 3 here. And then we simplify. 169 take away 121 equals x squared. So therefore x has to equal the square root of 48, and that's because we're trying to get the x by itself, so we bring the squared across to the other side, and the opposite of squared when we bring it over is square root. So the square root of 48 is going to be 6.93, because the square root of 49 is 7, so it's very close. Okay, so 6.93 centimeters to 2 decimal places. Next one. So this is slide 6 now, and what we've got again is another one where we know the hypotenuse, which is the C. Okay, so let's have a look at question 3 and how we're going to label. So question 3, so the side opposite the right angle is C, and we're going to call that A, that side there A, and this one here B. Now again, A and B can be flipped around, but I'm just going to label it like that. Okay, so step 1, label the triangle, which is of course what we've just done. Step 2 is we write down our general formula, c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Step 3, substitute. Okay, so c is 12 from the diagram, a was 8 and b was x. Next we solve by change side, change sign. So change side, change sign, what you're trying to do is get unknowns on one side and knowns on the other. So first of all we've got to get rid of these squareds. So 12 squared is 144 and 8 squared is 64. So it will be 144 equals 64 plus x squared. And again, the 144, that's a known, 64 is a known because there's no letters, and x squared is an unknown because it's a letter. Okay, so 5x, the 5 times would be a known and the x would be the unknown, for instance. So what we're trying to do by change side, change sign is to get unknowns on one side and knowns on the other. So what we do is we move the 64 across to the other side, and at the moment the sign in front of the 64 is a plus, so it becomes a negative when we move it across to the other side. So it becomes 144 take away 64 equals x squared. So now we're trying to get the x on the right hand side by itself, so we've got to bring the x squared across to the other side, and x squared, when we bring it across, it becomes the opposite, which is a square root. So therefore x equals the square root of 80, which is 8.94 centimeters. So really well done if you managed to get all 3 of those correct. And this is our lesson on Pythagoras' theorem. If you have any questions, then please click on the link in the description under the video, come and visit us, and we are more than happy to help. Thanks for listening.